Scarves and Spikes, episode 14. We've made it to 14. I don't know if I used the Fast and Furious one at 10. I have no other long movie series.
Fast 14.
I don't know. Has Tremors made its way to 14 yet?
Ooh, no, but that's a good call. Those are some good movies.
Yeah, that was a good series.
Well, everybody, welcome. Tommy Moose here with Sydney Hunt, Tyler Pilgrim. How's it going, guys?
It's going well. All things considered, there's some bad news to talk about, obviously, following Atlanta United. But other than that, things are going well. Hope you both are as well.
Yeah. We've actually had some nice weather, which has been great. We're past second winter, I think.
Finally.
And we're well into first summer at this point here in Georgia. So beautiful day yesterday at the training ground. Got to hang out. There you go, Dan Graham. So, yeah, that was a good shout. James Bond's got more than 14.
Good point.
I guess it's a little different though, because they're not sequential. But yeah, no, great. And I'm super excited because we got a pretty cool guest today.
Yes.
And who's the guest?
Mr. Mike Conti. At least that's what I've heard. At least that's what you guys have told me.
Word on the street is Mike Conti
actually Brett Shea
on the game.
No, but Mike's got his hands full. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks are the NBA playoffs by virtue of their win on Tuesday. So they're the playoffs, and Mike and Tommy is wearing his Atlanta shirt today.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the podcast later on, so Mike is working with the Hawks. Night to night the game, but working with the Hawks matches and then Hawks games, and then of course Atlanta United play-by-play in Toronto on Saturday, so he'll be up there. But yeah, excited to have Mike and hear what he has to say.
Well, what's even more exciting is this Saturday, for our first ever Patreon special that we're doing, we're going to be having a watch along for both our tiers, our $5 and $10 tier. So if you'd like to join, we'll be sending out a link on Saturday. It'll be a watch along, so just hop on in. It's a Zoom program. Log in, and we'll be on there live talking about the game. You're more than welcome to hop on camera. If you're camera shy, you're more than welcome to just use your voice. We'll have a chat. We'll talk about the game. We'll have some fun. We're going to be eating some Canadian food, some Canadian drinks. I think Crown and Coke is the drink special. I think you said,
yeah,
right, Tyler?
Crown and Coke this time around.
Yeah,
Atlanta and Canada.
Yeah, so come join us. It's going to be our first time doing it. So we're going to have a couple things we're going to be giving away. As mentioned on previous shows, I've got a Joseph Martinez candle. I've actually got two of them. So we're going to be giving one of those away, and then we'll also be giving
itself.
Yeah, one of them. We'll hold on to the other one. We'll give that away a little bit later in the season, and then I might have to go find out who made these candles and get some more. And then we'll also be giving away an MLS gift card as well.
Yeah. Again, the only way to be able to watch that or participate in that is to be a patron of Scarves and Spikes. There's a link in the chat for you to click on right at the top, or just go to the website, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. $5 tiers, $10 tiers, whichever you prefer. Really does help us out a lot, help us bring more content your way, and helps us to keep doing what we're doing. Other surprises, other treats for our patrons coming up, bonus episodes, AMAT episodes, maybe merchandise discounts, things like that. But it's on the website, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. Again, it's pinned to the top of the chat if you're watching the live show, or if you're listening to the podcast, just go there whenever. And thank you to all who are supporting us now, currently supporting us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're throwing the money right back in and giving away some stuff. So that's the plan for all of it. We're going to try to do these at least once a month. So we'll get it going the first time, knock out the kinks, and be ready for May.
Yeah.
So here's an idea. Bruno throwing up in the chat. What about we just get candles with each of our faces? And then there's going to be days where one of us can't be here throughout the season. And we'll just light the candle. And that'll be the contributor.
That's a great idea. We should look into that. I actually won't be here next month I forget the date, but toward the end of next month, I won't be here. So maybe that's an idea that you and Tyler, you and Tommy can work out for that.
Oh, I got a spot. I'll just sit you right, and we'll just have your face the whole time.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Like those fat heads, we could just put it.
Yeah,
and we can invest into some of those.
Exactly.
Well, it's all happiness. We got some terrible news today. Officially, I guess we got it earlier, and I'd like to start off. Yeah, I'd like to start off with an apology because we did the ratings episode on Monday, and I gave Brad Guzan a 10 for acting because that man hopped back up, I don't know, in about 6-7 minutes and seemed perfectly fine after the game or throughout the game, completely fine. And turns out that he was playing on a torn MCL, and he is now out for 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah,
for 93 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
That's incredible.
That's crazy.
You got to feel gutted for a guy that you weren't sure if he was going to come back from this injury. Now, Brad knew he was going to come back from this injury. We all questioned it. So we're the bad guys here because we were questioning if he was going to be able to come back here because he's a young 38. I always think that Brad's older than me. And then I Google it. I'm like, 40. Oh no, I guess I'm still at that age where I just assume all athletes are older than me, but I'm old now. So
I'm older than Brad by a few months. I'm born in May. He was born in September. So I got it by a few months, but it's just incredible, how much more in shape he is than me. So, Tommy, I totally get it. And Tyler's still young, so.
I mean, relatively. I don't always feel like it, though.
Yeah.
My body doesn't feel like it, but I mean, you got to give him credit. The guy, he takes care of his body as best he can. I mean, it doesn't really help when, I'm just going to say it, when pro referees don't help him out. But he took a knock, a bad one. He got waylaid for the second match in a row. And played that match on a torn MCL. And I'll throw this out there too. Just a note. At the training ground yesterday, we talked with Amar Sadich. And Amar Sadich, he was asked specifically, did you guys know anything about this going into the half, into the locker room? And he was like, no, when he went down, I just kind of assumed he was trying to slow the game down a little bit. It's a tactic. It happens, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, I just thought he was slowing the game down. And then he didn't get up for a minute. So I thought, oh, man, maybe something is wrong. But then he got up and played. And he was like, so he went to the locker room, and he was in the locker room just pumping everybody up, getting everybody excited. There was no indication that he had anything wrong with his knee. And then we all found out about it. This is what Sadich said on either late Monday or Tuesday morning when we found out. So that's a superhuman, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was texting my girlfriend about it when the news came out, and I was like, I would have been in the locker room crying or on the ground crying about my MCL being torn. But I know we were kind of talking about it the other day on the player rating show. We were wondering if it was just studs that came from Gabriel Segal into Guzan's legs, or if they just bumped knees in a way that hurt Brad more than usual. But yeah, I mean, we all thought that when he was hitting the ground in pain and yelling in pain, you could hear MLS season pass. We all figured, oh my gosh, he's done. And we talked about it the other day. But my gosh, shout out to Brad, 93 minutes. So the rest of the match plus stoppage time, plus 10 minutes stoppage time on a essentially one leg. Just the tenacity and his will, and I'm guessing his pain tolerance as well to fight through that. So yeah, that's big. Shout out to him. Unfortunately, it's 10 to 12 weeks, so you miss him for about 3 months, unfortunately. But yeah, just incredible what the human body is capable of when you push it.
So that gets into right around Leagues Cup, I think. That's right around the time,
just
somewhere
after,
around there,
I think.
So I wrote about on dirtysouthsoccer.com maybe late June, early July, because Leagues Cup begins in 100 days from when we're talking right now, and I have the exact date in front of me. Let me guess, on July 21st. So he'll be back a few weeks before Leagues Cup begins. So about 14 matches, not counting Open Cup. So about 14 MLS matches. Open Cup against Memphis. You figured that Westberg was always going to start that match because he essentially, as your backup goalkeeper, is your quote-unquote cup goalkeeper. So I think he was always going to start against Memphis, but now he's going to be carrying the load. We'll talk about Westberg a little bit later, but
maybe it's Westberg. Well, we're gonna have a conversation about this after Mike.
Yes,
we talked to Mike because Tyler and I were already going at it on Twitter a little bit today on disagreeing on who the starting keeper is. And spoiler, it's not Rocco's Rios Novo.
No. It is not Rocco. That is not happening.
Please, let's just not have conversations about goalie's height. A goalie's height. I do not. I can't. I can't do it for another season. I can't.
So, quick shout, Ariel. Appreciate you subscribing over there. Yes. We got a shot ready to go down for Brad.
I owe him one from earlier in the season as well. So
there you go.
It'll be at least another one for me.
You already got two. This is a good question. Renee asking, you guys think Pineda will criticize the refs again after the news of Brad?
No, I mean, I think he got it out of his system on Saturday. I think he said all he had to say. I think that, and we mentioned it the other day, I think he's been choosing his words carefully throughout the season, especially with that past match, not against NYCFC, but the match before that against Red Bulls at home. You can tell he's kind of choosing his words carefully, and he's sort of said it in the past, kind of sarcastically, the referees are always right. So he's been kind of dancing around, I guess, kind of a fightable offense territory, I guess you could say. So he's been choosing his words carefully, but you could tell just kind of the frustration came out on Saturday. His frustration with the official in that match, just very frustrated with how his vantage point were called and weren't called from half to half. And we talked about it on Saturday or Sunday, I should say, Monday. Actually, the other day.
One of those days. We did a show the other day.
Yeah, I was traveling, so my days were kind of mixed up. But talking about the other day, just the need for some consistency, and Drew Fisher, I think we can all agree, wasn't as consistent as we would like him to be. And Pro really needs to nip this in the bud and say, hey, there needs to be much more consistency in how fouls are being called in MLS from match to match. You have to set that bar from the start. Like, if you're going to call a foul consistently. It's kind of like baseball, right? The strike zone, how the umpires call the strike zones. Sometimes a ball that's just outside gets called a strike, and it seems arbitrary and relative to what the umpire is thinking from game to game.
It changes in the game sometimes.
Yeah, changes in the game sometime, and that's where the frustration comes in. Just that line. What is that line? Where's the consistency in refereeing? And I think Fisher wasn't as consistent as people would think. I feel like in Guzan's case, and Mark saying, even though Fisher was awful, our record with them refereeing is still crazily in Atlanta United's favor, double-edged sword. But yeah, I mean, I think the least you can ask for is just some consistency. I feel like the foul against Brad, or the injury on Brad, should have been a foul, and I feel like Pineda is very justified in thinking that it should have been a foul. At the very least, a yellow card. Well, it was a foul, but at the very least, a yellow card along with it. So I think that's where a lot of Pineda's frustration is, along with some other things. But to answer the question, I think it's out of his system. I don't think he'll mention it again on Thursday when he meets the media.
Maybe. I mean, we don't know. I thought about it. You go back and you look at some of Brad's when he holds the ball. I think we've had a lot of oh my God moments because he holds the ball a little longer than it makes us fans comfortable, right? Like, there's times we just see a player running and then he gets it away quick enough, but it's still closer than what we'd like to see. So I think about it and say, okay, well, is it partially on him for holding it on too long? And then I thought about Aruju's one of his first goals that he scored with Atlanta, where I think he I forget what keeper it was, but he went in and just stole it right from him and, had basically an empty netter. But what the difference with Aruju is he didn't go in there just diving for the ball, right? Recklessly. He just went in, tried to kick it away from him, and that was fine. These guys are diving. They're diving straight into his leg. And eventually, I mean, a league's going to have to, I mean, we say this every year, like the league's going to eventually have to listen to these coaches about being inconsistent. And Wayne Rooney is one that just absolutely loves to dig in to the referees. And he's got a point. And Pineda's got a point as well. So I don't know if they're ever going to listen from here, but I like what he's doing. And I think that the players appreciate it. And let's just do what other teams have done in the past and start a GoFundMe and say, you know what, Pineda, go at him. I know he's on yellow. I don't know if you can get a yellow for criticizing the refs after a game, but like Atlanta will pay your fine, man.
Yeah,
like,
dude,
I'm sure Arthur will pay that for you. You're not going to pay for anything. We could start the GoFundMe.
When you're
keep them out.
essentially, you know, think about it this way too. How much money has Atlanta had to pay out in the past year in medical bills for whatever, you know, variety of issues and everything else? And this is one where it's like, dude, this could have been entirely avoided by having consistency with the reffing organization, and it's just not there. And I actually, Sydney, I kind of disagree. I think if we go into this match this weekend against Toronto and there's some more shenanigans going on with the calls, I think that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Pineda. I think he might go in.
Yeah, I was referring. Yeah, I was referring to about the news of Brad. I thought Renee was talking about on Thursday. But yeah, if something happens on Saturday, I think the pot's gonna boil over essentially. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and it needs to, honestly. I mean, I get it. Like, yes, you don't want to pay the fine. I do think Arthur, Garth, Bocanegra, they'll figure that out. But it's never going to change. It may never change just from a bunch of coaches talking not crap. I mean, they're telling the truth. It may not. Really, what's going to make any kind of change in this league with pro is going to be A, the refs facing some kind of disciplinary action, and B, at minimum, and in a better medium than they already do, coming out and saying, hey, we got something wrong. We got this wrong. We got that wrong. Yeah. This is how it could have been different. Because at least when you do that, you assuage the fans a little bit by saying, all right, well, we screwed up. Mm-hmm. You know, that goes a long way. I mean, it doesn't fix the problem, but it does go a long way and maybe affecting a little bit of change.
Yeah. The hardest words to say sometimes are, I'm wrong. So
yeah,
they just totally tie into what you're saying. But kind of starting it off, officiating a little bit, and we can go on and on about it. Kind of starting back to the goalkeeper situation just a little bit with Brad. Of course, like we were saying, missing 10 to 12 weeks, and then maybe coming back late June, early July. I was thinking closer to early July probably. But Atlanta United, and we kind of joked about it a little bit earlier, I feel like are in a much better situation personnel wise than they were last year. Of course, and I wrote about it, that leadership void that is there with Brad's injury is massive, and we saw that last year. I feel like, personnel wise, like I said, they're in a much better place. You have Diop, you have Westberg, two players who have started in MLS. I mean, results notwithstanding, I don't want to talk about how good or bad they were. That's another topic. But the point is, these are two veteran goalkeepers that have started in MLS. Last year, you had Brad Guzan as the starter, of course, and then you had Dylan Castanera as your backup. And of course, we all know what happened with Dylan Castanera. Well, you had Bobby Shuttleworth too, but we all know what happened with Castanera. And again, we can go as a whole other topic. The fact remains that Atlanta United played 4 goalkeepers at some point, at different points of last season. I feel like, excuse me, things are much better this year, not only personnel wise with Westberg and Diop, who are proven quantities to some extent in MLS, but at the same time, and Sam Jones wrote about it in The Striker from Five Strike Final, or no, he wrote about it in the Daily Kickoff at LSoccer.com. But he was saying that considering all that Atlanta United went through last year, they should be more mentally prepared for something like this to happen than they were last year, because nothing could have prepared them for last year. They went through where and just through the ringer with injuries. Not to that point yet, obviously, but still that massive void is left with the injury to Brad is very placeable from a leadership standpoint. But again, you have two players in Quentin Westberg and Clement Diop, who again have started well, or who started MLS, and Mark saying with her back line in front of them should be able to hold it together. And that's a good point. You have you have Miles Robinson, of course, is back, probably one of the 2 or 3 top center backs in MLS. You have Peralta, who's been playing very decently of late. He's really come on and is in some good form. So I think from a backline standpoint, absolutely things are going well. And as things continue to go well, as that partnership between Robinson and Peralta continues to gel, because this is still a while. They didn't play together last year for a whole lot of time, if any time. So as they continue to gel, that partnership is going to become more and more sound, and they're going to continue to build form together in a strong partnership together. So yeah, that's an absolutely good point, Mark, that back line.
Well, future captain Miles Robinson, because he had it last time Brad went down, and then unfortunately bad things happened to Miles immediately after.
Yeah.
He's the guy right now, and he was ready for that role as soon as Brad went down. I think he spent a little bit of time a captain, I think, in the Open Cup game that followed immediately, and then came in to be the captain the next game as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this team goes, and Brad's still going to be there, and he's going to be on his little scooter that I think he was on last year, screaming on the sidelines. Yeah. And curious, now that it's Apple, I wonder if they'll still give Brad some broadcasting opportunities.
I don't know. That's a good. I think there might be a little stricter with that going forward, but you also have the Open Cup, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you're much better off this year, and that's not to say anything about Rocco last year. I mean, Rocco was thrown into the fire like a lot of players were last year, and that's just how it was. But you've got Clement Diop. We've seen him with the twos already, and he already had in one match 6 saves. Looked really, really good in the time that he was on, and we see him at the training ground week in and week out. Both him and Quentin Westberg, and they're both incredibly vocal. They keep in the small sided games and even the bigger games that we're able to watch, they keep their back line in check. They're constantly yelling. They're both, by the way, multilingual. So,
yeah.
I never thought I was going to see a guy or hear a guy that was louder than Brad Guzan, and I brought it up last week, but Quentin Westberg might be up there with him. That guy I think we look at him as like a smaller statured guy, even though he's not. But he is, he's a loud guy, and he is. We'll see how he is as far as a leader, but he always had the number of Atlanta when he played for Toronto. So you just got to hope that he can turn that back around and carry it on forward with a 5-stripe jersey on from now on.
Yeah,
I'm scared of him. I said that since the time he came on. I said even before when he played for Toronto, I'm like, he just looks like a diehard villain. But then you see his Instagram. I follow him on Instagram, and like he does all these family moments, and like it's like, oh, the villain's got a heart.
James Bond villain.
Yeah, there you go.
Talking about James Bond earlier, so
there you go. Real quick, and Mike's waiting. We'll get him in here very shortly, but real quick, Bruno asked in the chat, do you guys think that if either goalkeeper is playing good and Guzan is ready to come back, do you switch or keep Diop Westford to the lose their spot? No, I think Brad Guzan is the number 1 goalkeeper as soon as he comes back. As soon as he's ready, as soon as he's healthy, he's back in there.
I don't know.
That's just my vantage point. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think if Atlanta goes out in the time that Brad is on the bench and he's out, healing from his injury, if they go through and they have a handful of clean sheets and Westberg or Diop, whoever it may be, is looking solid, we know how Pineda is going to be with the chemistry and the consistency from week in and week out. I don't know that you want to throw that in there. I mean, you already see kind of what went on with Caleb Wiley and Derek Etienne earlier. I mean, you kind of expected Etienne to be the guy, but just because of his experience. But then Caleb balled out and did really well and made the decision much harder. So I kind of think it all depends on how they play, but I don't think anything's locked in.
Ibarra as well. We thought Sosa was likely going to be starting after the 2-game suspension, and Ibarra played well enough and kept him on the bench.
Yeah. I guess I can see both sides of it. Like I said, from a leadership standpoint, Brad's the guy. He's a captain. He's been the number one goalkeeper for years. But as Atlanta United begin to think about what life without Brad Guzan is, I don't know. Maybe if Westberg or Diop go on a run, like you were saying, Tyler, maybe Pineda, maybe flips that switch. And I don't know how Brad will take it, but I mean that's a bridge that we'll have to cross when we come to it. So
yeah, it's sports. It happens. Yeah, and like you said, we'll see what happens in the future. But I think for the case now, you just have to look at Diop and Westberg as two that are more than capable of handling it.
Yeah,
because they are, and then it's just a matter of seeing what happens in the future.
Indeed,
the sequel's going to be great, right?
Yes,
the sequel, the Brad, the Return.
Yeah, exactly.
Part 2,
brick by brick.
Yeah. Brick by brick. All right. I mentioned Mike Conti, who is our guest tonight, and he has been waiting patiently as we've kind of talked about the goalkeeping situation without Brad Guzan. And I think we're ready to bring him in. So one of the two radio voices of Atlanta United and brand manager of 92.9 The Game, and someone who is very busy this time of year due to the local basketball team in the playoffs for the first time in when was the last time they were in playoffs? A couple of years ago, right?
Last year.
They were actually there last year.
It
doesn't feel like it. They weren't there long, but they were there.
Yeah. But good to have you, Mike. I know this is busy season for you, but thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
No, it's my pleasure, Sydney. It's good to see you guys. You guys are doing a great job, and I was enjoying your discussion while I was, I guess, in the virtual green room. And it's funny, Quentin Westberg kind of always intimidated me from a physical standpoint as well. Do you know that might be the nicest guy on the team? Yeah. Seriously, like the nicest guy on the team. When we fly with the team and we gather at the charter terminal, most of the guys are kind of like, don't make eye contact, stay away, all that. Quentin's one of the first guys to come up to Jason and I and shake our hand and ask how we're doing. Really, really good guy, and kind of lousy circumstances that have afforded him this opportunity. But I think he's up for it. I think he's ready, and I'm pulling for him. I sure as heck am. And I think Clement Diop is going to be heard from during this stretch as well, because you have a lot of match compression coming up. I would suspect Diop is probably going to get a run against maybe Memphis 901, maybe against Colorado in these midweek matches coming up in May. But I've been enjoying your conversation. I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy interacting with you guys on Twitter. And I'm very grateful that you're having me on tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you immensely.
Mike, did you have fun last night?
I did. It's funny. You do 82 games and you kind of start crawling to the finish line a little bit. And I will admit that I was not really optimistic about last night's game going into it, considering the Hawks had lost 7 in a row in Miami and thought the Hawks kind of limped into that play-in game Tuesday night. By the end of the night, man, I was excited. I mean, you probably noticed I'm tweeting, I'm going back and forth with people. I do the road games from home here in my home office. So like Clark and Cleo, my dogs, they're here right now. Like they're all fired up and they're seeing me get all excited and everything. So kind of re-energized me a little bit. And then I saw the freaking playoff schedule and I can't do Saturday's game because I'm going to be in Toronto, and I can't do game 4 because the Chicago home game for Atlanta United is going to be just a teeny bit before the Hawks. So we'll have to go to Star and, someone will have to fill in for me. But those are the breaks this time of year. And look, I love doing Atlanta United. It's my happy place. It's my happiest 2 or 3 hours of the week. So I wouldn't trade that for anything, but was a little bit bummed out that, the schedule worked out in the way where I can't do game 1 and game 4. But hopefully we'll make a nice little run and I'll have more chances going forward.
Yeah. So, and this is, I guess, the perfect time to kind of play into that, because we have a handful of folks that watch or listen to the show after the fact that maybe don't quite listen to the radio, get the radio. They're not as aware of being able to use Odyssey to get you guys on the radio. So we know most of it, I think, but can you just give the quick rundown of kind of your background on broadcasting and then how you kind of got involved with Atlanta United?
Well, that would be a really long story, so I'll try to keep it as quick as I possibly can. I started working at a radio station in Pennsylvania when I was in high school, went to Penn State, continued to work for that radio station. By the time I graduated from Penn State, I think I was like the sports director of that radio station. I was doing play-by-play for a lot of the Olympic sports at Penn State, including soccer, but, women's basketball, lacrosse, things like field hockey, things like that. I was doing high school football and basketball. As soon as I graduated from Penn State, I took a job down in Savannah as the program director of a sports talk station down there. There's not a lot of sports to talk about in Savannah, so it was a lot of high school football and golf coverage, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I miss Savannah terribly. It was just there over President's Day. Love it down there. Miss the Low Country. And then I got a really good opportunity in 2006 to go work at WWL in New Orleans. I was also the news director of our cluster of radio stations in Savannah, and WWL needed help after Hurricane Katrina. A lot of their staff had to disperse for one reason or the other. And I kind of felt like that was, I don't know, it's going to sound corny, but maybe kind of like my responsibility. Like, I need to go in there and help. This is my way of helping, those people down there deal with the aftermath of Katrina, and had just an unbelievable experience at WWL for 2 years in New Orleans. And along with being the afternoon drive news anchor there, I kind of wiggled my way into some sports opportunity. I got all my jobs in radio because of my news background, but I really wanted to do sports all along. So, I overheard someone down the hall say, "Hey, we have arena football and no one to do it." I'll do it. I'll do it. I mean, I want to be a play-by-play guy. I'll do it. And they let me do the New Orleans Voodoo for a couple years, and did the Saints pre-hap and post, and then had a chance to come here and work in Atlanta. First at WGST Radio. I came here in 2008. And then one day they fired all of us, but luckily for me, 92.9 The Game was starting up down the street the next day. So I've been with 92.9 The Game since the station signed on in October of 2012. I now run the station. I'm the station manager, the brand manager. And along with doing Atlanta United, I'm also the pregame, halftime, postgame host for the Atlanta Hawks. Do a lot of kind of odd job play-by-play assignments here and there. In fact, it was weird. In 2022, I did a Falcons game because West Durham had COVID.
Yep, I remember that.
I did a bunch of Atlanta Dream games on Bally. And then when Bob Rathburn got sick, I filled in for him on some Hawks games on Bally as well. So, and then, obviously when Kevin was out for wrestling, I filled in for him on Bally. So I'm just having a great time doing what I'm doing. I'm doing my dream job. I feel like I have my dream job, and I'm just so grateful, to Darren Eels and Matt Moore and everyone with Atlanta United for giving me the opportunity to do Atlanta United starting in 2018. I don't really know if they kind of had that planned out where 2018 would be as special a season as it was.
It was all in the script.
Yeah, well, lucky me then, I guess. I mean, I cannot say that I'm unlucky, but I've just been enormously fortunate to be on this ride. Love doing what I do. Love interacting with guys like you. Love interacting with people who are commenting. And thank you for all the comments. And, I'm lucky. I'm getting to work my dream job. And you can't beat that.
Well, I was thinking about it last night, like as far as just thinking about the Atlanta sports environment right now. You've got the Hawks, who just made the playoffs for three years straight.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Braves winning a championship in the last 2 years, back-to-back championships for the Bulldogs.
Yep.
The Falcons are on their way up. Atlanta United finally seems like they're on the way back up. Is this one of the hottest times in Atlanta sports?
Yeah, if you're willing to count Georgia, and I do count the Dogs as part of the Atlanta sports scene, I'm sorry. I mean, I know that's going to be a debate, and I apologize to Georgia Tech people and Auburn people and Georgia. I'm even wearing my Georgia State shirt. My wife is a master's. She went to grad school at Georgia State, so I have a fond spot even for the Panthers. But come on, I mean, the University of Georgia is a dominant force in the Atlanta sports landscape. So if you include Georgia, which you should, yeah, I mean, this has been absolutely unprecedented. 2 national championships, a World Series with the Braves in the span of just a couple years, the Hawks becoming a frequent playoff team. The Falcons are what they are right now. But even like if you want to throw in Georgia Tech won an ACC championship in men's basketball a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia State, they have been very, very formidable in men's basketball, now even in football, the way that they're ascending. I really like what the Atlanta Dream are doing on the South Side. They have the WNBA Rookie of the Year this year. So, like, you throw all the little things in there as well. Yeah, I mean, the Atlanta sports scene right now is boiling hot. And I would, again, submit that Atlanta United got this thing all started in 2018. I truly believe that this is where it started. And, I don't know if necessarily Atlanta United set a standard that everyone else paid attention to, but I do think changing the sports juju, if you will, in this city from a negative to a positive really started to swing with Atlanta United in 2017, really, and then that big step in 2018, winning the championship.
So take us back to 2018, and your final call for MLS Cup has been heard all over YouTube, all over the soccer community. Was that just kind of spontaneous, or is it just something that I don't want to say you planned it, but yeah, how that kind of come together? Do you remember like really what you said, or did you have to like go back and watch?
Oh no, I know because it's replayed so much. I remember exactly what I said, and honestly, it like guys, it makes me uncomfortable because that moment was not about me or about what I was saying. I want to make that really clear.
Yeah.
It was about the players down below on the pitch. I was just lucky enough to tell everyone what happened. It had nothing to do with me trying to call attention on anything I would say. I just, it was a really special moment that was the result of a lot of hard work by dozens of people, and I was not one of them. I just got to tell people what happened. But I will be honest with you, Sydney. At that time, I was also doing Falcons games, and I think the week before the Cup final, it might have even been before the Red Bulls road leg. I think we kind of knew when Atlanta United won the home leg over the Red Bulls 3-0 that all right, they're going to be in the Cup final. And at some point, I talked to Wes Durham, and he had just done the Super Bowl the year before, and I asked him for advice, and he said, whatever you do, just don't plan anything, don't rehearse anything, let it all be spontaneous. And at that point, for whatever reason, I decided to completely ignore his advice and try to really have a plan for what to say. And the only I didn't plan out exactly what I was going to say, but the only thing that I kept thinking was, we've had such a long wait in this city since 1995, such a long wait for that moment where we could finally celebrate a sporting accomplishment that transcended the entire city. And look, let me be very clear. That's no disrespect to the Georgia Swarm, who won a championship a couple years prior. But again, I mean, I think if we're being completely honest, when you look at the level of attention that Atlanta United had in 2018 compared to what had happened with some other teams in town in prior years, it was not comparable. So I just kept thinking, it's been such a long wait. I can't wait for this to be over. And once the wait is over, we can all, kind of just explode. And that's the only thing I kind of planned was I was going to say the wait is over.
Yeah.
And it didn't really even come out correctly. I think it just said it is over. And I hear the call a million times now, and I wish I would have done some things a little bit differently. But the one thing I was actually really trying to do in like in injury time and in the late moments of the match. If you go back and listen, I was trying to tell our listeners, like, you're never going to forget where you are as you're listening to this, especially if you're listening to it live. So, pull out your phone and take pictures and really think about, really remember and treasure these next couple minutes, because I'm sure the three of you guys will never forget where you were when they blew for full time in that match. And I think that's really more what I was just trying to communicate to our listeners, along with still trying to call the match.
Yeah.
It was just, hey, take a moment now to remember this, because this is new for us in Atlanta, and this doesn't happen every day, and it may never happen again. It will happen again, but you never know for sure. And I think it was just trying to convey more of the urgency of, as you listen to my description of what is occurring in front of me, and unfortunately you're unable to be here with me, I'm going to make you feel like you're here with me. And I want you all just to kind of remember where you are at this moment, because you'll never forget it. So hopefully, if we had any listeners that night, they paid attention to that at least.
100%. And I'll give you my quick bit on, you got started doing it in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Back then I was working a job where I was in a car a lot. So you and Jason were the way I visualized some of these games until I could get a chance to go back and watch them. So, I don't want to speak for anybody else. I don't want to speak for, the community necessarily, but I will say, you both of you guys, obviously, but you've done an outstanding job, and you continue to do it. I don't get to listen as much as I used to because I'm at the press box now, but do an outstanding job. And there were times, man, where I was in a car, in the middle of the night, and trying to late game or whatever, and hearing you guys, and it was refreshing, because it is a blessing that we have announcers like you guys in Atlanta. So,
well, that's an unbelievable compliment. Thank you. Again, I'm just telling people what's happening. It's nothing that I'm doing. My job is to just let you know if the ball's in the net and give Jason enough space to describe how it happened. I'm kind of the third guy in that mix, but I do appreciate your compliment.
Absolutely.
Here in Cleveland, the Odyssey app is my friend, so that's how I get to listen to it. Back in the day, you couldn't find you couldn't find other cities.
By the way, we might be seeing you in a couple weeks if the Cavaliers and Hawks we could have another Eastern Conference Finals. So if so, the bell is on me. Okay.
All right.
Or Susie's Soups. We could do Susie's Soups too. Those are very good as well.
There you go.
For sure.
So kind of going back to what you were talking about a minute ago with the kind of impromptu and the advice from Wes and everything about just be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Explain to us how the whole boom Yakimakis started. we got to know.
Well, yeah. So, honestly, I mean, this is going to sound really, really silly, but I think we're all about the same age in this group. Some of you might make me feel a little bit old, so I'm not going to ask for your age. But if you grew up in the mid-'90s with any kind of video game system and you are a sports fan of any kind, you probably played NBA Jam. And, that's where I got it from. But it actually goes even before Boom Yakimakis. I played that game as a kid. I always wanted to be a play-by-play announcer, I think, since birth. Like, this wasn't something that just kind of came to me one day in my 20s or 30s. Like, oh, that'd be fun. I've always wanted to do it. So I always paid a lot of attention to, announcers on games that I was watching or in video game form, I guess, participating. And I thought the guy who was the voiceover on NBA Jam just was having so much fun. He's on fire as they shoot, and there's a comet trail behind the ball.
Yeah.
And, if you had a really good dunk at NBA Jam, the announcer would go, boom, shakalaka.
Yep.
That's really funny. Maybe 35 years from now, I'll be calling soccer matches, and I can say that. No. So let's go back now. I told you that when I was in high school, I got a job at a radio station in the middle of Pennsylvania. And as I was going to college at Penn State, I did a lot of high school basketball play-by-play on the radio, and there was a game, and someone dunked, and dunking is at least at that time was very, very rare, for a high school game. And I remember just kind of blurting out "boom shakalaka," and I got a lot of like people really liked that, and that really resonated with people. I think that might have been the only high school dunk I ever called. So I always just to be honest, among the four of us, I love doing Atlanta United. I think my ultimate goal, honestly, is to be a play-by-play announcer somewhere in the NBA. And I always kind of promised myself that if I got that opportunity, I would incorporate Boom Shakalaka into my NBA call because, again, I just loved NBA Jam. Well, here I am now in MLS, and as soon as Giacomakis got signed, it clicked with me like, oh boy, that's the same number of syllables and the same amount of K sounds. I think I can just twist this just enough, and maybe I can pull it off. And so that was one I kind of did think about when they signed Giacomakis. And, I guess I saw on Reddit that some people may not like it very much. So, I'm going to keep going with it, I think, but I always do. No, I always listen to my customers, and, if people think it's corny, maybe I'll move on to something else. But if it's something that's giving people happiness, then I'm cool with it too.
Yeah, that's great.
You got to have fun, right? You have to have fun with what you're doing, and
Well, look, here's the thing. Let's be totally honest, okay? I do games on the radio. Anyone who's watching an Atlanta United match has an option, and the easy option is to listen to the television commentary. So I've got to do something different in order to encourage people to choose Jason and I over the TV commentary. And quite frankly, I think the way to do it is to have fun with it. Look, when I studied...
It sounds like the motto of our show.
Yeah. When I studied soccer play-by-play, and this goes way, way back before I was doing Atlanta United. Like I said, I was doing soccer in college. The announcers that I gravitated towards in my study of the game were the Spanish language announcers. And I had no idea what they were saying, but I could feel their passion in the way that they were communicating. And that, to me, as a viewer, really drew me in. And I kept thinking, I am feeling what those men and women are feeling as they describe the match. And that is, I think, a very important job of a play-by-play announcer for the viewer or listener to feel the same thing that I'm feeling as I'm trying to describe to you what's happening. So I know I have to be a little bit different. Otherwise, you're just going to choose the television call. And I'm not trying to self-promote or anything or call attention to myself. I'm just trying to be different and have some fun with it while still respecting the game.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people don't like it that I say score as opposed to goal. I'm just trying to be different, and I do have a little bit of a ice hockey background too, so maybe that creeps into it slightly. But I'm just trying to be different. I was always taught use verbs. Score is a verb, goal is not. So right. It kind of started with that, and again, I'm just trying to be a little bit different. I feel like as long as the ball's in the net, I've done my job.
Right.
But, in terms of just having fun with it, I like I said, the 2 or 3 hours a week that I get to spend on Atlanta United calling matches, that's my happy place. That's the most fun I have in anything I do professionally. I hope that listeners can feel that through their speakers. It's not a forced thing. It's a real thing. Even in a 6-1 loss in Columbus, I'm still having fun, still having the time of my life. And I'm calling every match like it's my last because I don't know when I won't have the opportunity to do it anymore. So I truly am having fun doing it, but I want the viewer or the listener to experience that in hopes that, well, maybe they want to have fun too. And that they'll choose Jason and I over an alternative.
I'm happy that you get to yell in the press box or in the box. I can't. And I'm telling you, like when I was watching games at the house or in the car, if I was in the car, It was a scream fest, but it just all that energy comes out. And I think that's what people like about your goal calls, the score. Like, I think score is awesome because it is different. I think that's exactly why it's cool, because you can only say goal so many times in so many languages. Yeah. The Spanish language announcers, like you're talking about, they add that extra emphasis to it and the length and everything else, and it makes it exciting. And that's what you have in the English language.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think the four of us, with what we do professionally, we try to benchmark little things that other people do that we like, and we try to combine it into like our own style. Like for Sydney, for example, who I think is a terrific writer. Right? Sydney, I'm sure you probably have studied a lot of different sports writers and columnists, and you probably take little bits and pieces of a couple different people and you incorporate it into your own thing. So yeah, maybe I try to describe myself like maybe I'm trying to be 1/3 of Andres Cantor, 1/3 of Mike Emmerich, who I think is really the gold standard for a play-by-play announcer in any sport, longtime National Hockey League commentator. And I'm trying to be 1/3 Jim Ross, to be honest with you. Seriously, because those are three people that I really admire. Emmerich's ability to describe movements of the game, Cantor's ability to accurately describe something while still conveying how he feels about it, and Jim Ross for the entertainment value. If I can combine those three, I think, that's going to be a fun listen. Or you're absolutely going to hate it, and there's nothing I can really do about that. But hopefully, for the majority of the audience, it's a fun listen.
I'll say this. I'll say this real quick. I know Tommy Sears perked up when he said JR's name and Mike Emmerich's name, with him being a wrestling and hockey fan.
Right. So. No, but I love them. And I study their craft. I study them constantly because, look, now I'm going to go to, my alma mater, Penn State, and I wasn't the hugest fan of Joe Paterno, but he did say something that was very, very true. You either get better, you get worse. You never stay the same. And I'm always trying to get better. I listen back to every single match I call, trying to identify things that maybe I'm using as a crutch phrase or things that I'm overly reliant on, or maybe I'm not giving Jason enough room to describe something, or I'm stepping on him, or maybe Jason's making a point that didn't really resonate with me initially that I need to go back and kind of restudy. I think that's just part of doing your job correctly and putting the right amount of time into the craft. So, it's something I spend a lot of time on, but again, it's because I love doing it so much and I have so much fun doing it.
Yeah. Speaking of the craft and kind of moving forward with Atlanta United in the sense that, it's early in the season. Now that Atlanta started off the season, I think we can still call it almost as good as 2018. There's a lot of optimism. The Brad Guzan issue aside, it is what injuries happen. It is what it is. We could beat the dead horse, but from what you've seen so far this season, and with a window coming up, let me put it this way. If you were Garth Lagerwey and Carlos Bocanegra, if there was anything that you were going to change, if anything at all, what would it be? What would you look to in the window?
Ooh.
I know it's a trick. It's a tricky, tough question because things are so good right now.
I'm going through that. I would still be looking at my striker depth. I think you're in really good shape with Giakoumakis, and you'd better pray he doesn't get hurt. And look, Barry, that's not a slight on Barry. I really do appreciate Barry's work rate. He just plays in a different way than Giakoumakis. Barry seems to drift more towards wide positions, which makes it maybe a little bit more difficult for him to get consistent service. And then behind Barry, you've got nothing. I mean, Eric Lopez went to Columbus as the backup striker, but you put Jackson out on loan, which I think was good for him. I mean, Jackson is only going to improve if he plays, and he'll have an opportunity to play in Phoenix. So, again, given the caveat and everything is, what's your wage bill looking like right now? Can you do it in such a way where you can make it fit? I would like to see a little bit of an improvement in the depth you have at center forward right now. But this is still a much, much different situation than in 2020, where, I mean, my goodness, you were going with Adam John and J.J. Williams as the backup. I mean, I know I heard you guys talking about Brad. I mean, this is not comparable to last year with Brad's injury right now, because you have two proven competent backups. You thought you had a proven competent backup last year in Bobby Shuttleworth, and it turns out he was not very good. And then he left the team. He essentially quit to go coach. It's not going to happen this year. You also have the cover of Miles Robinson still at center back in front of whether it's Quentin Westberg or Clement Diop. So it's a much, much different situation this year. And I honestly, I think Garth and Carlos deserve a ton of credit. We were sitting around in January thinking, you're going to have enough guys to fill out a team sheet right now. And not only do they have enough guys, but at pretty much everything other than center forward, I think they're running a very strong, 2 or 3 deep at every position. I think the one player that is the indispensable piece is obviously Almada. Yeah. And I think that's going to be so interesting to see if Atlanta United gets an offer that gets them out of bed this summer. And then what is that number that would get them out of bed? Is it 25 million? Is it higher? I wouldn't be getting out of bed for anything under 30, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's how the club feels. That's my number. 30 would be the number. And then if you do that, where are you on the table and what are you doing going forward to still get something out of this season? Can you even swing a situation where you get a loan back and maybe you keep him through Leagues Cup and you get into CC? I don't know. Because I also think that Almada is a player that's got to go to a Champions League club. I mean, no disrespect to Almiron, but Almada's not, a 2019 Newcastle player. To me, he's someone who belongs in a Champions League club right now. And that, I think, will be very dynamic as the summer evolves. So I've given you a very rambling answer. I tend to do that. If you listen to the podcast, I apologize. But, it's like I said on the radio a couple weeks ago, as long as you have Almada, you are going to have a chance to win every game this year in which he plays, because you're always going to have the best player in the game as long as you have Almada. And I strongly feel that as long as Atlanta United keeps Almada and that he stays healthy, they're going to have a chance to win every match in which he plays this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned the Champions League team, and to be fair, Newcastle, they might be in the Champions League in 2020.
Yeah.
2024.
I want to be clear. I'm not talking about the state of Newcastle.
No.
There, I'm Newcastle now, absolutely very viable. I mean,
right.
I see Kevin, absolutely. I mean, that actually would be a heck of a fit.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a clumsy analogy. Right now, Almada's not a Brentford player, right?
Right.
He's not going to Nottingham Forest. I mean, Almada should be a Champions League player as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree. And I'm just kind of half joking about Newcastle, but no, I totally agree. The stature of club that are looking at him right now, huge names that are looking at him. I totally agree that that would be a great fit for him. It really would raise the profile of Atlanta United.
Absolutely. And the league.
And the league.
I mean, it would be in many ways the same way that Alphonso Davies really transformed the league maybe 5 years ago. I mean, this would make Alphonso Davies look like a sale for pennies on the dollar. It would be massively transformative for the league.
I want to talk about another young player, and it's funny because Michael in the comments just mentioned him. I'm Caleb Wiley, of course, being called into the U.S. men's national team camp for the Continental Classico, I think it's called, against Mexico out west in a few weeks. Michael saying in the chat, my wife is not a Caleb Wiley fan for a while. He has redeemed himself in her eyes of late. Laughing emoji, of course. Congrats on the U.S. men's national team for him. Yeah, but no, great to see Caleb. Yeah, he's proven himself as a really strong young player for Atlanta United. Of course, coming through the academy, homegrown signing, and now here he is, starting quality player for Atlanta United. Just tremendous trajectory for him. Another player to really keep an eye on.
Well, and I think Michael's wife's perception is interesting because, quite frankly, I felt like Caleb was thrown in a little bit before he was ready last year. And to score against SKC in the opening match of the season, I think threw the expectations for Caleb way, way out of whack. And I thought at times he struggled to meet maybe that collective expectation. And we're forgetting the fact that he was 17 years old and that he's thrown into a team that sadly at that point wasn't very good. And he had to do a lot with maybe not being fully ready for it yet. I think Caleb is certainly the most improved player on this team right now. And I haven't had really a chance to talk to Caleb about this. He's a quiet guy, as you guys know. I think he's a little bit shy, as one would expect being 18 years old. But I really want to know what Caleb did over the last 6 months to change his body. To me, it looks like he got a lot thicker in a good way. He got yoked in honestly kind of a similar way that Jackson Conway did.
Not to say they went to the gym together apparently.
Maybe, yeah, and coincidentally, I think Jackson really got yoked between age 18 and 19, and here's Caleb now between 17 and 18, and his body has really kind of changed. So Caleb obviously has put in a ton of hard work, whether it be at the training ground or in the gym or wherever. And the hard work's paying off. I'm really, really proud of him. And I think just the experience, look, it's a single match call up mainly with MLS players, but I think just the opportunity to get a senior call up and be with those guys for a couple days, even just for a couple days, I think that will do a ton for his confidence. And again, it's short. It's only one match, only a couple days, but I do think he'll come back to Atlanta United an even better player.
When we were doing, we do spaces after every single game while you're doing the post-game show. And last year was rough. And I know for you, I listened to your show the next morning on my podcatcher and hear some of the questions that you take. We take a lot of those live as well. We actually hear them.
Okay.
And, we kept pushing that, a McFadden and a Wiley, these players are getting thrown in the fire. But this experience going into the next season is going to show. And Wiley, that's the perfect example. Like, he should not have as much experience as he does today, but because of all those injuries, he's a better player now.
Yeah, spot on. And I think McFadden's another example. I mean, look, that we're going up to Toronto this week, and I mean, that poor guy had to suit up and start in a match against Toronto on 10 minutes notice because Brooks Lennon slipped on a floor mat on the touchline.
Rubber. Piece of rubber.
Right. Like you're talking about just freak accidents here and there that are throwing guys into positions that they did their best, but truly we're not ready to assume or we're prepared to assume. And those types of experiences will make an Aiden McFadden a better player. They have made Caleb Wiley certainly a better player. And I think even for some of the guys who didn't make it, who didn't stick around, like even a Rocco Rios Novo, Raul Godinho, probably became better players as a result of what they had to go. Cisneros is a really good example. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little surprised that it didn't work out where they could keep him. We talk about how you could maybe improve your depth at center forward. That's someone I'd still like to have in the team, to be quite honest with you. But another really good example. So one of the blessings of this season so far is you've been able to stay relatively healthy. You haven't necessarily needed to lean on those types of players yet. But look, there's going to be a match this year, guys, where a Johnny Fortune is going to have to save Atlanta United, or Machop Chol is going to have to save Atlanta United, or Noah Cobb is going to have to save Atlanta United. And you better hope that they're ready for it. And that's where I think Next Pro becomes incredibly vital this year for those players to get minutes. And I think it's why you've seen in at least one case this year, players who will get a few minutes in an MLS match on Saturday will turn right around and play on Sunday. I think that becomes very, very critical this year because you're not going to get better by not playing.
Exactly. We're actually going to bring that point up in just a little bit, talking about the twos, but that happened with Machop this weekend. I believe he played against NYCFC and then went the next day and played. I think he came on as a sub at the half. And for what it's worth, real quick on Chop, I think he is also one that has progressed immensely. Like his confidence on the ball in the time that we've seen him this season has been so much better than in previous years. But yeah, I agree. MLS Next Pro is, whether we look at the stats and the losses and all that, like that's not really what it's about. What it's about is preparing these guys for this first team. And I think the twos as a whole, coming from USL last year, but the twos as a whole, they're doing that job.
I agree. And I do think the results will improve as they continue to go through Next Pro, because a lot of other teams have the same goal right now, where they're trying to mold players into a first team system, make them first team ready, not necessarily try to find a way to out tactic Pittsburgh Riverhounds, or tactically outwit, Louisville or something like that. So I do think those results are going to come for the twos.
Yeah. Agree.
So want to be respectful to your time. We appreciate you coming on. I got one final question for you.
Sure.
This is not Atlanta United related, but as a fellow grill aficionado, I need to know what your favorite, because it's almost that season, by the way.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to grill, regardless of price or whatever else?
No, great question. Right now, my thing is tri-tip. And let me tell you why. Because I love beef. I love that it can be done relatively quickly. But if you do it Santa Maria style like I do, you still can take enough time to smoke it. And the way you season it becomes vital. If you're just going to put like a really nice steak on the grill, it's going to be quick. Even if you reverse sear, it's going to be relatively quick, and you're just seasoning it with salt and pepper. You don't want to over season a steak. With tri-tip, I think the fun with that is you can get really, really creative with the way you season it. You can almost season it like you would season like pulled pork. And if you do it Santa Maria style, I use a seasoning that has some coffee grounds and some cayenne pepper. It's kind of like a acidic, spicy type of rub. But then I smoke it on mesquite, and it doesn't take very long because you're only trying to get it basically to medium rare. It only takes about 40 minutes. Then you just do a quick sear and you're done. So I feel like I'm able to express myself with all the flavors and the smoke and everything like that, and get creative, but not have to spend all day on it. Because unfortunately right now, until hawk season ends, I'm not going to be able to do all day grilling. So this is my express version right now, but tri-tip. And it's usually a very inexpensive cut. You can do it with pretty much any beef side. So that at the moment, that's my number one. But get back to me in like 2 or 3 months, and I might be on pork steaks. Pork steaks are another one of my favorite, but they really take all day because you're constantly basting them and everything like that.
Have you ever done a crown roast?
Yes. Yeah. Oh. Wanted to do it for Easter, but forgot to order it in time. Crown roast for Christmas is something my Noni used to do a lot. That's a really fun one too. Standing rib roast, again, that's a Christmas Easter type deal for me. I'll inject garlic cloves into it. That can be a lot of fun, especially, if you do a compound butter. And oh boy, I'm making myself hungry.
I know, I'm not there with you. I need this recipe though. I want the recipe because I'm going to try it. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Next Sunday, tap me on the shoulder in the press box, and I'll go through it with you. But it's so easy. I mean, you basically you get the tri-tip, you rub it, you let it sit for a couple hours, and then I'll take you through the grilling procedure. But it's a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds delicious too.
Yeah. Well, I'm biased, but I think
that's okay. Always be biased towards your own grilling. That's okay. Yeah. All right, Mike. Hey, we absolutely appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on, taking the time. It's been a pleasure as always. You're more than welcome anytime to come back. It's an open invite.
I appreciate it. And guys, thank you for your coverage of Atlanta United. I just want to say for a moment that supporters of this team are very, very lucky that they have the three of you and they have Joe and Sam and Felipe and Doug, and even I think to a lesser extent the buy-in of the television stations in town. The way that this club is covered unfortunately is not common around MLS, and it's a credit to you guys and your hard work. And thank you so much for creating and maintaining that level of coverage and covering the team, I think, in a very fair and just a very fair and objective way. I think you guys do a great job, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yeah,
Thank you so
really
much.
appreciate it, Mike.
Appreciate
Thank you so
it.
much. And I'm sure a lot of fans echo that in regards to 929, just the depth of coverage they give at Lady United. Jason's show. On the afternoon, morning, you guys are talking about soccer. You don't get that in many major markets at all. So,
Sydney, and I know you guys are trying to get rid of me, but I'll just say this really quickly. As
Not
the
at all.
Manager, we wouldn't be doing that if our audience didn't demand it.
Yeah.
And I keep telling my counterparts across the country, I can show you the numbers that prove that we have an audience that demands it. If sports radio stations around the country treated Major League Soccer and their local club as the major league sport that it truly is,
right,
it will only help to grow it. What we had to do at 92.9 was make the conscious decision that we are going to treat Atlanta United on the same level as the Falcons and the Hawks and the Braves. And our audience believed in that, and now our audience consumes it. So I appreciate your compliment, Sydney, but quite frankly, it's a smart business decision by us. Our audience demands it, and that's why we provide that level of coverage.
Excellent. And I hope other markets take notice and really do that.
It's coming. Boston's doing it, which I'm glad to see. Columbus is doing it. Houston has been doing it. So I think it's coming, but we need more of it, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you get rid of me now.
No, you're good. Thanks,
man. Really appreciate you.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
Always great. Love hearing from Mike.
Great guy.
I don't know if he can still hear us after the fact, but no, we never want to get rid of our guests at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd keep you on all night, just like we did Jason.
Yeah.
But great guy. Love Mike.
Yeah. And of course he'll be on the call with Jason for 929 this weekend against Toronto. And another part of that is, love that, they travel to these venues. Not a lot of stations send. I believe Atlanta United really helps in that regard, but not a lot of radio talent travel with the team in MLS. But Jason and Mike have done it outside of COVID. During COVID, they did it. They called it locally, but outside of COVID, it's good to see them getting on the road, getting to Toronto, getting to New York, other places. So really good to see that, and speaks to the level of investment. Bruno asking about Mike Conti teaching us how to grill tri-tip for the next Patreon video. Maybe.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
Mike's cooking episode.
Yeah. Yeah, but another plug to our Patreon, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. Again, our viewing party on Saturday for patrons only. So go to that website. I'll put it again in the chat here. And if you're listening to the podcast, again, patreon.com/scarves and spikes to become part of our Patreon and become a patron of Scarves and Spikes. And with that said, shall we switch gears to... Well, no. First, let's talk about the twos, right? We're talking about the twos real quick.
Yeah, we can hit on the twos real quick. So the twos played this weekend. It's been kind of an interesting schedule, I think, because you've had the ability to basically play the second teams of each team you've played for the first 3 weeks, which is almost the first 3 weeks. So it's been interesting, and it's worked out. And so my son just sent me a message. We'll call that episode "Cooking with Conti." So we got the name already. I like it. But yeah, so the twos played NYCFC 2 and unfortunately lost 2-0. NYC got up early, I think the 8th minute or so. I won't go into the play-by-play details. Just know that Vicente Reyes is having another solid, it's early, but he's already showing well. He had 5 saves. Clément Diop in I think it was the first match, maybe the second match, had had 6. So they're definitely getting their hands full back there. That's something that I'm sure Steve Cook is going to be looking at. But again, like what Mike was saying earlier, that's going to come with time, right? They're going to grow. You have a new coach there, new league. They just came from USL Championship last year, so lots of changes. Not really worried about that, but interesting. And I brought it up when Mike was on, but you had Machop Chol, who played against NYCFC at Yankee Stadium, and then turned around and had a full half with the twos the next day. So I think you're going to see a lot of that this year, between the back and forth between the first team and the second team, with a handful of these guys, probably mostly Chop. I would imagine you'd probably see Noah Cobb quite a few more times with the first team. Maybe like a McFadden, a Tyler Wolf, I think again. But
Tyler Wolf, yeah,
definitely Tyler Wolf. So you'll see him, and it is very easy now to watch the twos. By the way, like if you don't know and you just need a fix on Sunday when they're usually playing, it's either going to be on your Apple TV deal already or on MLSNextPro.com. So like it's not hard to access if you just want to check out the young guys, and they're worth checking out. So anyway, that's the quick.
Does everybody score bangers on MLS Next Pro? Like everybody scores bangers on Atlanta United too. Like everybody, like every match I've watched, like some of the goals that are going, you're like, nobody could stop that.
Yeah. Like how is that? What do you do there? Like even the one Eric Lopez scored last week, like it wasn't like a screamer, but it was a well-placed, it was a good shot, and it wasn't a tap in or anything like that. I mean, he had to place it correctly, but yeah, I mean, you look at some of the goal of the match days or whatever they are now, goal of the weeks in Next Pro, and you're looking at some Golazos, some true Golazos. So I'm glad they started back up though. Super excited about it. And Dan Graham giving a quick shout to Jason is doing a radio broadcast on their Soccer Down Here channel as well. Jason Longshore. So
is John a part of that too? John Nelson or just Jason?
I think John's still. I think he's still doing it with him.
Okay.
I mean, John and Jarrett both still do Soccer Down Here, the actual show.
I'm talking about the Atlanta United 2 matches.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
real quick. Sorry, like it's just what Mike said about just everything about Atlanta United and how it's covered, and I talked about early on in the season. I think when Jason was here, like MLS. I mean, Columbus is a 2-hour drive, but you don't see a lot of coverage really across the board of that. And if it wasn't for all the podcasts that were out there early on, Mike and Jason shows have always been available the next day. I started listening to Five Stripe Final. That was my first really like podcast. I typed in Atlanta United, tried to find things. Kelly had a podcast with the guy, I think I forgot about his name already, for a while. Jay, listen to those guys and Mouse of the South, all this coverage turned a guy that lives, halfway across the country into a soccer fan that, never liked it a day in his life. And that's what's important, I think, just across the board of any sport is you just need coverage to really get people to jump in and buy in, and having all this knowledge of listening to everybody. It was like after a year of watching them, of course, it was the year they won the championship. But after the end of the year, it was like, I have to watch every single game. And now I know I know knowledge, because you start watching a sport for the first time, right? You start learning things about it and you're like, I don't understand this. And then they break it down on their show. Why did this happen? Why was this the call? Why was Ibarra given a red, even though it was a little controversial? But Doug will post that picture and get 1,000 comments under it. But it's just there's so much there, right? And that, I think that's just so important. And it grows the game, and more importantly, grows Atlanta United.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come, and definitely the podcast, the radio coverage. John, Jarrett, Jason, Soccer Down Here, all the things you've mentioned have really built that foundation, and really good to see. And Doug too with the AJC, the TV stations. If all come together really behind this team. So good to see. One quick thing about Atlanta United too, and then we may move on to Toronto. So we mentioned Reyes, and this kind of ties into the goalkeeper situation a little bit. Good to see Reyes stepping in. Good to see Diop stepping in with Garcia still recovering from his ACL. Not sure when he'll be back, but yeah, good to see that as well with Garces on the bench for now. So hopefully he recovers soon. But yeah,
and yeah, real quick point on Reyes as well. I think you give it a couple of years, and you might be looking at Atlanta's first true starting homegrown goalkeeper for the first team. Both him and Garces. I mean, it's kind of like a, it's a catch-22 in a sense because they both are getting time. They're both doing really, really well with the twos. But I think that's one that, and I say homegrown, that's going to be one that's going to come up through the academy or through the twos and then eventually play for the first team.
Yeah.
I think, unless another club sees the talent and comes and picks him up, which I wouldn't be mad at Atlanta for taking advantage of that. But yeah, so I totally agree. And going back to what Tommy was saying, real quick, Bruno asking Tommy, controversial question: if you could only choose one, baseball, hockey, or football?
Well, baseball would be the bottom of the sports. Like that and the NBA are probably like there. That the three would be football, soccer, or hockey. And hockey, Bo's got it right. Hockey is still my first love there. But surprisingly, just because of the environment and not just because we podcast here, but just how much fun you have when you go to an Atlanta United game and just the family type atmosphere of like hanging out with your supporters groups and everything. Soccer's passed up the NFL for me. So I put it on 2. And if you told me this in 2016, even early 2017, that I'd be saying this, I would just be laughing. So it's 2. It's 2. My hockey team sucks. They're the second worst team in the league. But yeah, they're still number 1 in my heart.
Hey, but that puts them in the lottery, right?
It did. Yep. I root for them to lose every night. Hockey season's over on Thursdays for me, so after that, I could really, focus on
all in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
we have a game to talk about.
Yes, we do. And unfortunately, Brad Guzan won't be available, as we've mentioned. Rico Barr won't be available due to the red card. Michael asking in the chat, will Goodman be back Saturday? He was questionable against NYCFC, of course, didn't play. I imagine that would depend on how training goes this week. Will determine whether he's back and how quickly he can build match fitness. But I feel like from a lineup standpoint, it'll be the same as it's been. Wiley at left back and then Etienne at left wing. But again, 2 holes to fill: Guzan in net and Ibarra in the midfield. So I guess we want to talk about predicted lineups first.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there real quick on that comment as well. You've got Gutman's training. He's back training fully with the first team. So he was out there. I don't think it would necessarily be a problem of match fitness. That being said, I think from like a strategic standpoint, you've got 1 or 2 options. You can go back to what worked with Toronto mostly the first time around, except for the goal scoring part of it. Defensively, though, it was solid, except for the one miscue that led to the goal. But if you can afford to let Gutman hang out and maybe just be a sub in this match, which you can because you have Wiley, you let him maybe come on, get a half hour, 20 minutes, whatever the case is. The case is in this match.
Yeah.
Then Wiley goes to the Continental Classico, the U.S. men's national team camp, and returns just before the next match. And that is one where you kind of set yourself up to go ahead and put Gutman back in the starting lineup so you can allow Caleb a little bit of extra time to rest because he'll just be getting off a plane. So you're not forcing yourself to do something you don't have to do. You've got the luxury right now, so you might as well use it.
Right. So, let's talk about midfield. I know you guys have been saying Sosa. I guess I agree with Sosa as well. He's kind of not. We talked about it. He's struggled to get on the field, not for any bad reason. Of course, he served the 2-match suspension, or his second and third of his 3-match suspension at the beginning of the season, but hasn't been able to see the field. And not because of anything he said wrong, just because the play of Ibarra and the play of Josetu in midfield. So it looks like Sosa will start in that spot on Saturday. We'll see what Pineda does, what he says too on Thursday, but looks like Sosa in that spot. Do you guys feel that maybe it could be something else for any reason, or?
So I'll throw my 2 cents out there. I do think, the most obvious choice is Sosa at the 6, and then either Sejdic or Rossetto as the 8. Mark saying Sosa and Sejdic, and then Rossetto off the bench. I think that's the most likely, only because I think they're being super careful with the amount of time they give Rossetto coming back in from that earlier injury. I mean, he's had plenty of time at this point. I don't think it's any concern. But if you want to throw a wrench into it, I'll just give you what was said at the training ground the other day, which was Sejdic and Rossetto both essentially saying all of the midfield core that Atlanta has. They said they're smart enough to drop in to play as a 6 if they need to, whoever that may be. Rossetto specifically said that he has played as a 6 before, and I don't recall who that was with. It was Paranaense, whoever it was, but he's played as a 6 in his career. Sejdic, I don't know how much he's actually played that position, but Rossetto said, he would step up and handle it if needed. But I think the common sense answer here is just Sosa, because he's more defensive minded. He's played the 6 plenty for Atlanta United. He's played as a center back down in Argentina. So I just don't think you need to change that around. I think this is the opportunity for Sosa to come in there and just prove that he can do just as well as Ibarra's been doing this season so far. And in the time that Sosa's been in with subs and all, I mean, he's looked solid. He's looked sharp. I don't think there's any concern that he can't handle himself.
For sure. Like when Sosa came in, everybody was amazed at everything that he was doing. The passes that he was making, I mean, they were great. The defending that he was doing. Then it went a little bit downhill after you change coaches. And then, he's hurt for an extended period of time. Then he's back, and then he's hurt again. And, then he gets suspended, and then he comes back, and, he basically lost his starting role, which we said earlier today. Like, we thought that after 2 games, Sosa was coming in. But you're seeing Pineda's coaching style. And sometimes I question, is it his coaching style that says, if you're in my lineup and you're doing well, it's not getting changed, we're going to keep you there? Or is it that he's just saying that I think that this player is better than this player, and this is how we're keeping it? And I know that he has brought up last year frequently, he couldn't start consistent lineups because of all the injuries. And now I heard someone say the other day, it feels like they've been able to keep consistent lineups. I think it was only really one time that they've been able to do it. Like, they've had to move small pieces here and there. It's like one guy that they've really changed out, but it's nice to see, these guys getting their chances and not getting pushed out, because I think some of our previous coaching staffs just go back to the old lineup once those guys are healthy. And like Rossetto was playing probably the best that he had been playing for Atlanta United before he got hurt, but Sejdic is also playing great. And Sejdic hasn't done anything to lose that spot yet. So this is a very big moment for Sosa, in my opinion, because now he's getting that chance. And if everything I just said is true, then this is an opportunity for him to earn his spot back and be able to keep it consistently. So I expect a huge game from him. If not, then I think that's trouble for him going forward.
I feel like everything else is pretty cut and dry. Excuse me. And that, I mean, you put Westbury in, right? And then
are we?
Yeah,
I know Mike said it.
We're gonna have the conversation now. It's got to come up soon.
I feel like it will be Westberg starting, unless it's a major curveball. I mean, Westberg has been second choice keeper of the lineups for weeks now, so I feel like he's second in the pecking order at this point in time. So yeah, that's just my opinion. I feel like he starts, and then Sosa probably in midfield for Ibarra, and then everything else the same. But again, that's just my opinion. It looks like a lot of you in the chat are kind of agreeing with that for the most part. So I think in a lot of ways, when it comes to the attack, it's pretty cut and dry. And then again, with Caleb at left back, as he has been, especially with Goodman trying to get back to a place where he can play. Yeah.
So
I just want to be controversial. Like, that's just what I want to be. Like, I want to
Try to
spark
be
a conversation
contrarian.
because like Diop has played, he's fresh, and sometimes when you have a guy that hasn't seen actual game time, they're not fully ready for that game. Now I know they're professionals and they're supposed to be ready at any moment, but you've seen other times where they post a stat about a keeper hasn't started a game in X amount of days, and they're like, oh, this is a guy that we could pick on because he's not fresh. I'm just saying there's been a guy that's with the twos that's been playing frequently here, that has been playing well, has been making some nice saves, that is game ready, match fit, and that's my talking point. But it seems like everybody disagrees with me. But on Saturday, I will maybe we'll find out I'm right.
Just flip a coin.
I mean, like, yeah, it's a very good point. But like Mark is saying too, agreeing with you, Westberg's been the bench guy, but Diop has been getting playing time. Feels like it's a 50-50 call. The inverse of that is, are they comfortable giving Diop the time with the twos because they were prepared as Westberg as the main backup just in case something did happen in a game where Guzan would go down. And that did happen, except for the fact that Guzan just decided to be a Darth Vader and stay in and not go anywhere. DD in the chat saying Felipe Cardenas thinks Diop will start. Yes, that is where our Twitter conversation originated. I think it will be Westberg, but I do think it's a close call. And I will say this, and I've said it before on the show, like, both of them are so impressive at the training ground. And of course, the training ground in the real match is totally different. But you are going to Toronto, where Quentin is very comfortable. Yep. Now, does he become very uncomfortable because suddenly the team, the crowd isn't behind him, but he does have experience playing on that field. So it could go either way. And I'm curious to see what Pineda does and how it plays out. I would love for either one of them to come out and get a clean sheet to start off, their time.
Same here.
Always.
Speaking of clean sheets, what are we thinking about scoreline?
I don't know if I need to do it. I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to go 2-0 to Atlanta because they deserve everything from that first match to get it back and get it right this time. And, they absolutely played Toronto off the pitch entirely. So you don't expect to be able to do that again going away. And then now there's been some time, changes, everything else. I don't think you're going to go and do that again, but I think Atlanta's the better team. And you got to shut down, a couple of Italians for sure in their midfield, but it can happen. And I think you go up there and I think you can get the clean sheet and I think you get the win. So I'll say 2-0.
Have they got everybody back from injury?
I don't think so. I think Toronto still has missing pieces.
Yeah.
Gutierrez is out. Dio is out Monday, and then Signe will not play. So those are the injuries for Toronto FC. I'll say 2-1 Atlanta. I'll give Toronto a goal since they're at home, but I think Atlanta, like you guys are saying, are the better side between the two. So with the personnel that they're missing, I will say 2-1 Atlanta United to continue kind of this good run of form that they've been on.
My mind is telling me 1-1, but my body says 3-1.
I'm here. Bruno agreed with 1-1 because of Sean Johnson.
Yeah.
And I'm so tired of Sean Johnson.
Remember that game where with Pity got the PK? Like, they started rolling the credits for that game. Like, basically, like, you're watching it on ESPN Plus, and they're like starting to show the credits. Everybody's high-fiving. My wife goes in, and I'm just screaming outside. I had quite a few drinks at that point because the game was just so miserable to watch. And I'm like, there's a penalty, just screaming it. And she like runs down. I'm like, he shanked it. Never mind. We're good. We still lost.
Right. I think it was right over the crossbar.
Yep.
Oh, that was so frustrating.
Are they the one? Wait, no. Did they do something weird for their celebration?
Who?
In Toronto? I feel like they do something weird. Maybe it's another team. Who's got the bell? Is it Montreal?
Montreal.
Yeah.
That dumb bell.
Like the North Star or something like that. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
They have a name for it.
Then like Portland has the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Which is
Columbus has got the stupid construction thing where they hit the little piece of oh, it's so stupid. So stupid. I mean,
that's awesome.
The first time I went to a game and I saw that, I was like,
Bob the
Builder. And because there's like, there's construction. Like that's a big joke about Ohio is there's just yellow cones everywhere. That's why they're called the Crew. And I was like, oh God, this is so dumb.
That's awesome. That's what that could be another episode, ranking all the goal celebrations.
Train horn, yep. Golden Spike,
yep.
Luda,
yeah. I like it. We're coming up with ideas for this whole Patreon thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Timothy in the chat.
Toronto has a group apology Canadians.
One thing I do want to talk about at some point tonight, we've gone long tonight, so we won't start this conversation. But one thing that we do need to get to that we got on Spaces, so stay tuned, is we need to talk about the MLS schedule and how it's working so far. Maybe we hit this like up at the middle of the season, kind of give just a review of the whole Apple. Maybe that's a Patreon episode. Let's talk about Apple and how they're doing and how the schedule is working. And I think that would be a fun topic because Spaces was lit on Saturday with that.
I didn't realize the opinions of everybody on that.
People jumped in pretty hard on that, and I don't know if it's controversial, but like when you have something that's entirely new of what you're used to, I think it's a good conversation to have at some point. Yeah. Yes, Colonel, I hate construction.
Who does hate it? Who does like it, by the way? Who is a construction fan?
I mean, growing up going to Florida from Atlanta, growing up in Atlanta and going to Florida multiple times a year, it felt like portions of I-75 would never be completed, ever. Years, like decade and a half went by. They were just doing the same construction on this interstate. And I was like, dude, when is it ever? And then they just move it to another portion of the interstate somewhere.
I believe it. But yeah, I mean, we talked about Patreon, but again, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. The watch party on Saturday, the second screen experience. We won't be able to stream the game, obviously, within the Zoom, but we'll have a second screen experience. You guys can watch it at MLS Season Pass anyway on the same platform. But yeah, a lot of things we have planned for Patreons, for our patrons. So yeah, log in and join the fun.
Win a gift card, win a candle.
Exactly.
Come in and win one of the famous Joseph candles and a gift card. So look, we're starting off small. Like we're not giving you like a $500 gift card or anything.
Working way up.
Well, yeah, we got to start somewhere, but we want you guys to come in and we want it to be fun. And this Patreon thing is, bear with us because it's the first time we've done it. So like, we're going to work the kinks out, but we're going to have fun. I mean, I can guarantee that. Like, we're definitely going to have some, I might drink some like Crown and Coke out of a maple syrup bottle or something. And we got to apparently do a couple of shots at this point. So I don't know what kind of food I'm going to have yet, but I know poutine has been mentioned.
Yeah.
Is it pronounced poutine, by the way?
Poutine. Yeah.
Okay.
But Bruno, it's an MLS gift card.
Yes. But Saturday night should be fun. Giveaways and whatnot. Again, patrons only. So hit up that link in the chat or go to the website, patreon.com/scarves and spikes and join the fun.
Yeah.
Right up there if you're watching the stream.
Also, for those listening after the fact, and those who want to listen after the fact, because I don't think we mentioned it on our episode last week. Maybe we did, but it's still relative. The podcast network has undergone a name change. It is still the same. You're still getting Five Strike Final. You're still getting us. but it is not known as the Dirty South Soccer Podcast Network anymore. We're still doing all of our stuff with Dirty South Soccer in terms of me and Sydney writing and all of us. So that's not changing. Dirty South's not going anywhere. But for reasons that are beyond our control, we can't be a part of a named Dirty South Soccer Podcast Network. So now,
Atlanta Soccer Podcast Network.
Yes, and it's a logo.
ASPN
Is pending.
Yeah,
Atlanta Soccer Podcast Network. There it is, right there on the screen. Tommy showing you a new logo: 5-stripe final, scarves and spikes, coming soon with a soccer ball. So, but that's where it's at, guys. The podcatcher of your choice, it'll show up on there. So
awesome,
cool,
fun show tonight.
Yeah, good
Mike
time.
Conti.
Yep, and thanks, Mike, for coming on.
Yeah. I think that's it. Like and subscribe, everyone. As always, patreon.com/scarves and spikes as well. Watch party on Saturday. Tyler, Tommy, any final thoughts?
Bring your pictures of your food you're making, because apparently Colonel is making some poutine at home. Bo making gyros and kebabs in honor of Yakimakis. But no, y'all come on and have a good time. It'll be fun. And
no chicken and rice.
No chicken and rice.
We can give like a gift card to Hibachi, like for chicken and rice. Like that could be the Joseph special.
I like
future shows. Maybe a
I
future
like
show.
Saturday after the match, we will still be doing a Spaces as usual. Sunday, I think we'll be back to our regularly scheduled ratings video. And then so that's everything coming up here in the next few days. I'm excited to see you guys.
Yes. Thank you everyone for watching, listening on the podcast. Again, Atlanta Soccer Podcast Network. And I think that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Good night. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Weekend.
See you soon.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go.
See y'all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Later.